All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Duarte Moraes. We're with People First Tourism, and this is our fifth Lunch and Learn Together, where we focus on topics that we've learned from the collective of artists and makers and farmers and other passionate people in our group. Those are issues that you are curious about, or you would like us to kind of develop insights and share information about. And our practice is to have members of the collective come and share their perspectives. And my role will be to just kind of get us situated in, what we're going to be talking about kind of in a more broad sense. So I just wanted to point out that we continue to polish things so that your experiences to visitors are to be found directly in the calendars of the tourism development authorities in your county. So the first one listed there is the Visit Raleigh website, which encompasses all of these things tourism related in the Wake County. And they have a calendar. They have a huge calendar with lots and lots of concerts and things like that. And then they have one dedicated just for the things that People First Tourism is curating with you. And then in Rutherford County, in the foothills of North Carolina, you can see that link there to the calendar of events, and it's a smaller calendar. And so there is just one for both the People First Tourism, agritourism experiences, and then other little things, happening in Chimney Rock or in Lake Lure or throughout the other small towns in the county. So we'll go ahead and get started. So as I was reflecting on what to share with you to kind of get us thinking, and Taylor from Rutherford County just joined us, so welcome to Taylor. So as I was reflecting on how to kind of get us started with this lunch and learn discussion, I thought it was important to talk about the quality of partnerships. As I have been interacting, let me just admit everybody, because people are kind of arriving to the meeting right now. So as I was thinking about that, I felt that often when I talk to you, you come to the understanding of your partnership from a less powerful and less valuable position, as if these like restaurants, breweries, galleries, museums, city parks, as if they're doing you a favor to allow you to offer your experiences there. But actually, I want to kind of emphasize to get us started that you bring a lot to the table when you are looking into forming partnerships. You can see over there, like industry partners, what do they get from collaborating with you? One of the things I emphasize maybe too much all of the time is that everybody in tourism, all the tourists are looking for meaningful and enriching experiences that are not standardized. They're not Disney. They're not McDonald's. So they're not Mac Disneyfied. They're not something that can be found somewhere else. And you are that thing that cannot be found somewhere else. You are hyper local. You are unmatchable. So if you probably have gone to restaurants that say our farmers, and they have a board with the names of farmers that supposedly they source their product from, their ingredients from, because they want their guests to feel like they're eating a unique meal that cannot be consumed somewhere else. So by partnering with you, they are for, that moment that you're there, and maybe if there's like social media and public relations on the wake of your presence, they are showing to the world, to their guests, that they really are connected to you. Another example is a coffee shop that is not Starbucks. You go to a coffee shop like Cup of Joe's here in Raleigh, or there's a coffee shop Gene and I really like in Rutherfordton, like the Locals Coffee Roaster or something like that. They usually have local artists' pieces on the walls, showing and even helping sell those pieces of art. Why? To show that they're not a made-up place like Starbucks. All right. So you are invaluable in that regard. All right. Another thing is that they usually have a business model that is cyclical, and there's times of the week or times of the year where there's just not a lot of traffic of guests. And by having an event there, you are going to bring more traffic. You're going to bring more revenue during those slow times. The other thing is that they and every business ends up getting kind of saturated and getting just a lot of repeat business, and it's hard for them to be known by other people that usually don't go there, right? So when you bring in a few more people to that farm to paint cows or to paint apples. These folks had never come to that farm. And now they know that that farm is there and they know the owner and they may start coming regularly. So the cost of a business getting a new customer is huge compared to like getting repeat business. So by collaborating with you, you're bringing a whole new batch of people that now are aware of that space. And then the other thing is that, especially when you're working with People First Tourism, you are generating a lot of goodwill and public relations that really brings attention to that business as like a do-gooder business, a community-focused business. If you go to your grocery store, they'll have pictures of the local little league soccer team or something because they gave them their t-shirts, you know. Every big business and medium business is trying to show that they are community engaged, and collaborating with you gives them a lot of that PR muscle exposure. And then the point I wanted to bring up to you, of course, you make income, you get to do what you're passionate about when you collaborate with these businesses. But the one thing I want you to understand is that the tourism development authorities, they really are interested in connecting with you, but they are accountable by law to serving hotels, restaurants, and brick and mortar businesses. So by collaborating with those brick and mortar businesses, you then make it easier for the TDA to support you, you know, because if they support your crochet workshop, they're not just supporting a local artist, they're also supporting a local coffee shop, restaurant, etc. Okay. And so they have that excuse. If they are pushed by policy and a lot of scrutiny on how they are supporting these artists and these farmers, they're not really tourism businesses. Well, now, you know, since you're collaborating with one of those formal businesses, you know, you are making it easier for the TDA to have the excuse, you know, to support you with promotional money. Okay. So on the right of the slide, you see there's there in from top to bottom in a higher degree of quality of partnership. You should not think of developing aid partnerships where they are helping you out. And you should not just think about it as a transaction. You're paying for the venue and they host you there and you make revenue. You need to think of more of a reciprocal, more of a human kind of relationship. Okay. And so this is a little diagram. Actually, I studied this like 30 years ago in grad school, how to form relationships with customers and with other businesses that are not just business kind of transaction relationships. So what you must do is to be the first to approach, to start with that kind of investment in them. And I just gave you a little example, but it'll be different for each of you. But go there, talk to these potential partners, show that you admire them, you know, in social media. Oh, I'm so excited. I may be able to collaborate with this gallery or with this farmer, you know, and then your community goes like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then if you tag them, then that formal business will notice that you are investing your care and your advocacy in them, and that creates a sense of indebtedness. In a functioning society, when somebody shows affection for us and high regard for us, we feel indebted. In an anonymous transactional society, we don't give a hoot. We pay money, they pay us back, we get something, and that's it. We don't think about more about it. But if you show them your love, then people don't know, you know, they can give you $20 in exchange and consider it done. Now they feel indebtedness. And so the third step is for you to tell those businesses how they can take care of you and show that they care about you as well. And I just gave example because of talking to Natalie a little bit about this, and she'll talk a little later. like working in a brewery, if they really care about you, they will get you a special table in that space and reserve it for you, you know? And instead of just giving you beer for the money that you pay, they go a little extra mile to care a little bit special for you. And this, as you go through this, then you build trust, and then you have a trusting, reciprocal relationship. All right. So I'll leave you with this kind of conceptual, nerdy stuff, and I'll pass it on to Gene to take us now to the next level, to the real juice. Oh, and I almost forgot. I wanted to give you these
I was
examples.
going to say, Duarte,
Yeah,
the
sorry.
cookie people.
Yeah. So I picked this photo because this experience is happening tomorrow. And I have it in my imagination. I kind of have a vague sense of all these things that we do in collaboration with all of you passionate, amazing people. And I remember this particularly because I was there and we were taking this picture to show the logo of the brick and mortar business along with our experience. It was very strategic. And I invite you to think strategically about that. So now the cookie people, they sell like in this case, 5 or so cookies when we have an experience there, but they have staff and everything. And but in addition to that, they get to be in the Visit Raleigh calendar and their brand is right there, right? And then we do social media engagement and these photos shows up and it's there as well. Imagine how much money this exposure is worth to the cookie people business. All right. And it's not just exposure, it's exposure associated with the passion for crochet and arts and human and storytelling and connecting people to people. So it's invaluable to them. I have no doubt that they will always be cool with, maintaining this collaboration. All right, Gene, now for real. It's your turn.
Okay, thanks, Duarte. That was a good introduction of what we're going to talk about from the uh, entrepreneur perspective on building these relationships, how long it takes, what you need to do first, and how to identify these brick and mortar places that would be helpful to building these relationships. And so I'm going to introduce Natalie first, and she's going to talk about taps and cork tours. So it's yours, Natalie.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to present. I'm really tickled to be able to share this with you all. So, in my business, I offer walking beer and cider tours, which literally means that I meet a group somewhere, we taste some beer or cider, then we walk to another location. And even though these are public places where I'm going, it's important for me to establish a relationship with the businesses that I visit. So I do reach out to make a connection before I take a group on a tour. Before I even started doing tours, I started a blog in 2012 about North Carolina beer and wine. I still maintain that. And that was a nice way of getting to know some of these places before I ever even started the tours. So, what I wanted to share with you today is kind of what I consider to be best practices for building relationships. This may be actually the hardest part of what I do, getting a tour established, and share the. I will share that I don't always check off all the boxes, but I think it pays to try. So, why build relationships? Again, I want to know the businesses and be able to tell their stories. Because we're going there to drink something, I like to know what I could recommend at each site. I want My tours are walking tours, so it's also important, in addition to getting to know the folks at the breweries or cideries, it's important that I walk the route and make sure it feels safe for a group. Then making contact, usually that means starting with a cold call to the bar. I let people know that I'd like to offer a tour there and ask who I should talk to. Most of the time, I'm not talking to the person that I need to talk to, so I get that contact information. But it really helps, I want to say, to be able to share that I'm partnering with People First Tourism and Visit Raleigh. It adds legitimacy. And in fact, Gracie Boswell, when she still worked with People for Tourism, she and I sometimes would make these visits together. I would talk about my tour business. She would talk about People for Tourism and Visit Raleigh. And I think people got excited to hear that. Then I always follow up with usually a call or an email to the person that I need to talk to, again, citing the relationships that I have. But what I really need is some specifics about their business. I want to know if they can accommodate a group my size. We're not more than 12 people at any time. Since I'm coming to them usually on their busiest day of the week, which is Saturday, I like to know, if there's a better time than others. If they have special events planned on a certain date, that's important to know. Sometimes that can be a benefit if they have music or something that people would enjoy, but it can also be somewhat overwhelming if we run into a situation where we're stuck in line waiting to get drinks. I also ask if they would be willing to reserve a table for us. A lot of people are, but some people who have smaller businesses are kind of freaked out by that. So I just roll with it and go in and try to find a seat as quick as I can. It's also really important to me to know how they serve alcohol. And this speaks to the issue of how much alcohol I'm serving people, but also what it's going to cost me. You may not have thought about this, but there are businesses that only serve drinks in pints or half pints. Not everybody offers a flight, which is an ideal way to let people taste more than one thing. Sometimes, usually, a business is willing to let people step up to the bar and request a couple of tastes, but they're not going to be able to taste everything that's on draft. So I take a look at what's offered at the businesses that I want to visit and figure out if it's cost effective to go there and if I can allow people to sample things without providing so much alcohol that they can't walk to the next stop. Staying in touch with the businesses is really important. I recently reached out to a business that I hadn't visited for several months and only to find out that they had sold the location that I was calling about. So, yikes, I had to, kind of make a really quick pivot to find some other locations. I also had a tour last January that had to be canceled because of an ice storm. And when I reached back out to let the contacts know that I wouldn't be coming, one of them said, "Oh, I'm so glad you got in touch. I wanted you to know that we're going to be closed for the whole day." So had I showed up that day anyway, we would have been short one location. And then maintaining good relationships is really important to me. I always try to be fair with people. Alcohol laws are really, really strict, so people can't really discount beverages for me. I don't expect them to give their beverages away. I always pay for the product and tip the bartenders well. Try to make sure we clean up and put our glasses in the bin before we leave. And then if we've had a particularly good experience, I would like to reach back out and let my contact know that we really appreciated the service that we got. So,
Thank
um,
you. Thank you,
yeah,
Natalie. I appreciate that. That was a good overview of your experiences and what makes sense. Uh, so next up is Molly.
Hi everyone, my
There
name
you go.
oh, thank
Thank you, Molly, for being here. We appreciate it.
Hi everyone, my name is Mally. I host Brush the Skyline at White Hill. Um, Brush the Skyline. I've been doing that for like a year now. It started as a way to bring art into new spaces that people already love. I think White Hill is the perfect location for my event because it has the background of what we paint. I don't know if you can see in the picture here, but we're painting the Raleigh skyline. Um, it brings new people into spaces that aren't regulars. I've had people that came from different states celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, people that moved away, and also it just attracts people that's actively looking for something to do. So that's why I love Brush the Skyline. I get to meet people from all over, everywhere. I also handle all the experience full. I also handle the full experience when we transition. Now I do ticketing. That's been an easy transition for me, and I think the venues appreciate when we do that. And then also, it just, I feel like it's easier for me for everybody that played a part in that department. The staff stays focused on the food and drinks, and then I think the most important thing to do is the cleanup process. That builds a stronger partnership with the managers and everyone, the hosts. I've learned that the hosts love that the most, actually. Also, I feel like Brush the Skyline works best when it's ongoing. I'm always consistently asked when's the next class. People always bring their friends. Um, they love a routine schedule and it builds trust for the person, me, and the business as well. The management is what I'm saying. Also, I am very intentional about where I host the event because not every venue works for what I'm trying to build here. Their environment matters. What I've learned that expanding into new venues hasn't always been easy for me, not due to the lack of interest, but because some pricing structures doesn't always align with the scale of my business, even on their slower days. Even though it benefit both sides, we get great art, connection, and a reason to get together. Venues get new guests, the energy, and repeat visits. And, that's it. That's all I have.
Well, thank you. And the Brush the Skyline has been a real boon to People First Tourism. It's amazing opportunity for people to experience the art scene in Raleigh. And we really appreciate what you do.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, next up is Debbie Stanfield, and her her events are a little different than what we've been talking about. She is one of the P1t entrepreneurs, but she also hosts several entrepreneurs at her farm. And so she's sort of an addition to the brick and mortar. So she's a brick and mortar place that hosts artists and makers and storytellers, but she has her own events. And so I'll let her explain how all of those relationships pan out. So, Debbie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I have notes, so I'm going to try to stay on course, which is not that easy. But
Well, thank you.
I'm probably going to get the hook as usual. But anyway, all right. So my husband and I own a general store, Cherry Mountain Farm. And really, this is a retirement gig, and it was one of these things that we really didn't know what we were getting into, and one thing led to another, to another, to another. So we came from South Florida, and then seriously started thinking about retirement. In 2007, we found a piece of property in little old Rutherfordton, North Carolina. And we literally just made an offer and bought it and had no idea what we were getting into. I wanted to call it Fly by the Seat of Your Pants Ranch, but I got overruled by my husband, so we called it Cherry Mountain Farm. And that's also, we have a great view of Cherry Mountain, but it's also, there's, if you want to look up the history of Amos Owens, he was a moonshiner known for Cherry Bounce, who constantly got arrested and constantly rebuilt his still. So it's just kind of a cool reference. So we retired and we moved here in 2013. And the way it started was I got Angora goats. Angora goats are fiber goats. I wanted to raise something that I could make something from. And I had very little knowledge of goats. I've had horses since my 20s, but I didn't know about goats. And at the same time, we had another business, but we transitioned to opening a brick and mortar store. And mind you, neither of us had any experience in that whatsoever. My husband was a firefighter. I was a nurse who went into medical device sales. So we really didn't know what we were doing. But when we opened the store and I had the goats, we had to figure out how to get people to the store. We are on a major highway, Highway 64, but we are kind of off the beaten track. We're 8 miles outside of Rutherfordton and we're 19 miles out of Morganton. So our first goal was how do we get people here? So I started having baby goats, and that'll get people there. And then I started doing tours, and that will get people there. So little by little, we figured out how to get people on the farm, really to get them into the store to buy things. So basically, we started with the baby goats. I started doing tours. Um, this is a lot of on the, learning on the job training because we really didn't know what was going to work best. And I decided because I didn't want to get overwhelmed to do the tours by reservation only. So it's not like you have tours at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock. You just do tours by reservations and the same thing for field trips. So we started doing that. And then you have to add a product that's going to bring people from not only the towns around us, but bring people from far away. As far as we have people come from Raleigh, we have people come from South Carolina. So we started carrying case knives. Very, very popular. A lot of people like to collect them. So the case knives started bringing people to the store. Then we decided, well, I need another animal. I got two Kune pigs, cutest things ever, 8 weeks. Boy, that'll bring people. Baby pigs, that'll bring people. So we got more people coming to the store. Luckily, my husband is very creative, although sometimes he needs to be reined in, but he decided to get an old gazebo from it was an old grain mill or grain, what do you call the thing? The grain mill gazebo. Anyway, it was from 1960s from a farm in Ohio, and he erected it, and that finally gave us a space where we could hold some events. And then we added a barrel train. We're very family friendly, and that worked out really well. And then we added a gem mine. And all this has been going on since 2014. So this didn't happen overnight. It was just like an addition. And then we added 3 miniature horses. So we pretty much got to the point where we think we had enough. And then we had the introduction to People First Tourism. And I'm like, oh, this is great. You're going to set up workshops. Well, we have a place. Right now, we were weather dependent. And the bottom slide is one of our workshops that we did. We started with a blacksmith workshop in town. We have a really good blacksmith that does classes, and these were a little bit shorter classes to get people interested in it. We had them make a small knife, and then we had them make a hook. That sold out, and I think we did that almost 3 times. So that was really good. It was all arranged for us. The ticketing was handled. I'm a firm believer of whatever I add, it can't add too much work for me because you'll get overwhelmed. So that worked out really well. We tried the painting thing, but we got rained out, and that's when we started thinking about we're going to need indoor space. Um, the next thing that we did was the resin, and that was a great success. Lee is a wonderful teacher and a wonderful artist, and she does all sorts of things with resin. The first thing we did was a like a little paperweight. Then she did one with earrings, and then she did one making a sun catcher. And she brings all the supplies, and the Suncatcher was sold out. We had to add another one. That was really, really popular. So we started with the workshops, and we learned once again, we had no experience in any of this. So this was a learning experience, and it was nice to learn about how to run it, what's going to work, what's not going to work. So you had talked about, it needs to be mutually beneficial. So the relationships with the people that are going to be doing the workshop, it's got to be mutually beneficial. We'll provide the venue, and we'll provide people on our busiest day, which is Saturdays. What I think is important to know is, and once again, it's back to the don't make too much more work for me. The Peter principle, which really is based on, it's based on people. If somebody, you hire someone, they keep getting promoted until they get to the point where they're incompetent, and then, it sort of falls apart. Well, I apply that to what we do, in that if you get too big and you're going to lose, you're not going to be running a good um, agritourism site. So you have to be really careful about what you're adding. We get a lot of calls that people want to come, they want to do this, they want to do that, but you need to vet them. You need to make sure that they're up to your standards. You need to make sure that they understand it's mutually beneficial. And you need to really vet your people. I just got like 3 calls yesterday. So I have learned from that, don't make any promises. If you're going to have somebody do a workshop, it's kind of a trial run, and that's of course after you vetted them. So you're hoping that it's going to work, but don't make any promises. Make sure the quality is there, and make sure they're getting a benefit along with us getting a benefit, so that mutually it's beneficial. And we've had permanent jewelry. We're doing that. We have our Valentine's Day event. It's going to be photos with the miniature horses. We're going to have Cousins Lobster food truck, and then we're going to have the permanent jewelry person here to do that. We've done fairy hair. That's always been very popular, and we're probably going to start doing some resin workshops. And I think because of the collaboration with People First Tourism, we learned a lot as to how to run these and what's going to work best.
Well, thank you so much, Debbie. That was a really good rundown of what works and some of the things that you've learned over the years. And we really appreciate your input. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Jamie. She's going to run down some of the tips that we've learned over the years. So, Jamie, it's all yours.
Thanks, Jean. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie. Um, I realize now that I should have made my slides prettier because all of yours have been so lovely and colorful. So next time. Just to jump right in general, we find that it may be useful for us to talk to you guys about our personal experiences and takeaways as P1T, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And apologies if I'm repeating things that others have said, but at least some, if not all of these things, hopefully are worth repeating. Um, anyway. Just by virtue of our position, we very often serve as a de facto matchmaker between the micro entrepreneurs and venues. If you're familiar with Fiddler on the Roof, we're the Yenta of the village. We know a ton of attractive venues, and we obviously exist to support you, the collective. So we're able to make a lot of those healthy and equitable connections. That said, these relationships can take a few different shapes. Sometimes it's as straightforward as helping somebody rent a space, and other times it's about finding and striking a partnership of shared values. And that's where both sides are, invested in both the experience and the people that it brings together. So, when we start this process, we usually begin by seeing what's out there, doing our research, venue-wise, and what kinds of experiences the venues have hosted before, and how they might already be, showing up for the community. We also will lean on tried and true professional local knowledge. So someone like Andrew at the TDA, who's joined us today, is invaluable because he understands the landscape and all the personalities behind these spaces. I see that little clapping. That's great. Um, and then a big thing we've learned over time, and I'd extend this to all facets of life, is that partnerships work best when we start with realistic assumptions. The first thing is that venues almost always need some sort of compensation, and that's totally fair because they might need to pay an employee to be on site during your workshop if you're doing it after hours, or otherwise, if it's like within normal working hours, they will have to find a way to generate revenue through food and beverage sales. There's also the case where they just might charge you a fee. When you're working with larger venues, there's usually a bit more structure involved, and that can get a little tricky. Can look like chains of approval, can look like contracts that need to be signed, sometimes far in advance. It could be non-refundable fees, and oftentimes with larger events, there's like licenses, permits, all kinds of stuff like that that need to be acquired ahead of time. And those requirements aren't wrong, of course, but they do limit your flexibility. So in some cases, People First Tourism's, historically stepped in to sign the contract and anything else that needs to be signed, assuming that financial risk or burden just so the micro entrepreneur didn't have to carry that alone. We've also worked with nonprofit venues, and those relationships sometimes look a little different. They might operate on a donation-based model. That can be a great fit, just depending on the goals of the experience. Uh, I'd say above all, and I'm sure you guys are going to be so shocked when I say this, but one of the most important lessons we've learned is, of course, to prioritize local and like hyper-local venues as partners, especially ones without a large looming corporate structure behind them. And we've learned that it's crucial to reach out to management early to, lay your cards out on the table and find out as early as possible whether a venue has that kind of intrinsic motivation to truly build a community-based partnership. Because when a venue has super high overhead and very rigid requirements, the cost will typically get passed to your guests, and it's going to make your experience simply too expensive to sell, like Mally was getting at earlier, and that's just not what any of us are going for, I imagine. So when your values and your expectations and incentives are aligned, you're going to have a partnership that feels supportive instead of transactional. And that alignment is what gives you guys, the micro entrepreneurs, the space to focus on what you do best, which is creating meaningful experiences. So thank you. That's it. And I'll pass things back off to Jean.
Thank you, Jamie. That that covered about all of the things that we've been experiencing over the years with people who we've tried to partner with. So I'm going to turn it back over to Duarte to wrap this up. And sorry we went over a little time, Duarte, but everything was on point. So
Yeah, good information. Thanks, Gene. Thanks, everybody. So I wanted to remind everybody that the recording for this Lunch and Learn will be on the toolkit page, along with a few materials, and there's some recordings of other video tutorials from elsewhere. And we will take a break in March from doing a Lunch and Learn. We're going to take a little break to have the collective kind of reflect on what you've learned over these 5 months and to tell us what other topics you think we should focus on moving forward. So we have tentatively scheduled for the first Wednesday of April and May to do Lunch and Learns like this.